And good morning to everybody. Back at it again. We are moving along, getting everything lined out here and preparing to release the SugarRush food delivery app tutorial. I was kind of mulling over how I wanted to go about doing this as far as releasing it. As I'm currently orchestrating my schedule with everything else that I've got going on. So my thought process then led me to deciding that anytime I do any new tutorials going forward, I'm always going to record a video similar to this one before the actual tutorial starts, which this is an overview of what we're going to cover in the tutorial, as well as just to note a slight change in how I'm going to be labeling these tutorials because it's confusing. I was confused in the way that I was labeling them previously. So sometimes I have to break up a single tutorial section into multiple parts. And so when I labeled each primary part as part 1, part 2, whatever, and then I had to break it up into smaller parts, listing it as part 1 and then parentheses part 1 of 2, and it's just confusing. So make it easier on myself and perhaps all of you as well. Top level sections will be called chapters, and then we will have sub chapters will be called parts. So it might be chapter 1, part 1 of 2, or whatever. So just a little note going forward. And again, I'm going to be doing these overviews before we start any tutorials going forward to just kind of give an outline of what is going to be discussed and what's going to be demonstrated, so you know ahead of time going into it in case there's any preparation that you want to make yourself. And also that way you don't go through the entire tutorial and are confused or upset that I didn't cover something that you were expecting. You know up front right now what we're going to be looking at. So a food delivery app is a complex app, right? DoorDash, Uber Eats, whatever else is out there nowadays. Those apps are very complex. It's not something I could not teach the entire app in a tutorial series on YouTube. That wouldn't take a really long time to do. And unless that's the only tutorial that I'm going to be putting out for the next several months, then it's just not feasible to go over every little section of the app. What I intend to do with this food delivery app is I'm going to cover the key components of a food delivery app. The things that really kind of make it stand out from other apps. And that's what I intend to do with quite a few of the tutorials going forward. And of course, showing little tips and tricks of how to achieve certain things in FlutterFlow that you may not have known about. But if you're looking for every bit of every piece of an app explained to you in a tutorial, we can speak privately and see what your goals are. But it's just not feasible for me to do that. And also be able to share other things that I have going on. So, all right, so what we're going to be doing then with this particular tutorial is we're going to cover two different apps. We're going to have the customer side, and then we're going to have the driver side. And I will show you how to tie those two things together using Firebase. If you use a different backend, then you'll have to experiment with that yourself. For the time being, every tutorial that I'm going to do on here is going to be tied into Firebase. Eventually, I might touch on Supabase, and a little bit down the road, which I'm going to be doing another video here soon. explaining kind of how things are going to be organized going forward, and the different things that I'm going to be putting out as lessons. But again, it's at some point I'm going to start diving into using databases that are quite a bit more complex, and that involve more advanced knowledge of coding and not just in Flutter, and doing things on server side and running your own servers and things like that. So if you're interested in like really kind of digging into the weeds of things, that's something you'll want to probably watch out for. But for the time being, we're going to look at Firebase. So I'll show you how to connect those things. So in the customer app, which is where we will start, and that's what this app is, that'll be the first thing that we touch on with this tutorial. And primary things that we're going to look at is obtaining the user's location. I'm going to set up a simple marketplace with locations nearest to a 30-mile radius of the customer's current location. If you want to set that to a larger or smaller radius, again, some of these things you're going to have to experiment with and play around with, kind of learn how to do. But I'm going to give you the baseline of how to at least get to a point where you can make that happen on your own. We can discuss methods for importing business data. So that would be, the name of the business, their location, and then their menu and their prices. So there are different ways that you can go about doing that. We're going to discuss methods for incorporating payments, but I'm not going to demonstrate payment gateways, partially because different countries use different gateways. So there's no possible way that I can universally do that for everybody. But also because setting up payment gateways is just a whole nother thing to really tackle. But we will talk about it, and I'll kind of tell you what options are out there and what other companies are doing or maybe doing, and then you can begin to explore that yourself and figure out what would work best. However, I will simulate payments because it's necessary for teaching the tutorial. And also with the payments, I will also demonstrate a custom function for calculating app-related fees. So whatever fee that you want to take off the top, also included with the total price of the order, and then fees that need to be associated to the driver, taxes, things like that. So we'll take a look at that stuff as well. So let me scoot down here my list real quick. I will also demonstrate customer shopping carts. I'm probably going to use local state variable for that with persisted data turned on. That way they can essentially save their order if they haven't placed it yet and come back to it later. I will demonstrate placing order workflow, and also so the process of the customer adding things to their cart and going through and ordering, making payments, and also a tip selection screen for the driver. And we may split that up and let them choose whether they want to put it on their card, if they're doing a card payment, or if they want to give it to the driver in cash. I give them those options. We will look at the notification process when a driver has accepted the order, picked up the order, and an ETA for when the driver will make it to the customer's location. And what we're going to do for that is we're going to use some custom function code for calculating the distance between the restaurant and the customer's location. And then we're going to plug in an assumed speed limit in miles per hour between the two locations to get an estimated time of arrival in minutes. In a real life situation, you would want to be pulling the data of speed limits and road hazards, car wrecks, road closures, things like that, reroutes and any kind of problems like that. You would want to be pulling that data in dynamically based off of APIs that are out there that are available, so that information is being updated in real time. Doing it off of a set standard mile per hour of 45 is not, that's not going to be ideal, because somebody might, the only road between them and the restaurant might be an interstate where the driver can go 70 miles per hour or faster, and they might get there way faster than what the estimate gives. So again, you'd want to look at dynamic data for estimating these ETAs. But again, for this app, we're just going to plug that information in directly to at least give an idea of how it works. And then we'll also set up a simple review page where the customer can leave a review for their driver. All right, now this is not a separate app, but some notes in here related to the businesses. Those are the people that are selling things, food or whatever else. We're going to discuss and demonstrate the process of notifying the business if they've received an order. There are different ways that this happens in the real world, and what method you choose is really up to you and how you're going to do things. I will demonstrate the process of sending an email to the business, where they would get an email alert that they've got a new order that has come in from your delivery app, so that they know, who's going to be picking it up and whatnot. But realistically, and we'll discuss this, but obviously I'm not going to demonstrate it, is other methods for incorporating the order workflow into existing point of sale systems at the business. That would require you to be able to implement your system into their system. So that's really kind of, that's a step above, I guess, just going into MVP stage for sure. Initially, you're probably going to be doing something like sending an email, sending a text message, or even having some sort of portal, like a web app or a mobile app for the business themselves to receive these notifications that they've got this order coming. But long-term thinking, you would have to incorporate it into their point of sale somehow. That way they can attribute the revenue across their entire process for, keeping track of what they're selling and who they're selling it to. So we'll talk about that some. And then the driver app. I feel like I passed something up in the customer app. I did, sorry. In the customer app, we will also demonstrate near real-time mapping capability. So we'll use maps with data points and data points related to the driver. We're not going to use the real-time database. We're going to use Firestore, and I'm going to show you a method for demonstrating, or a method for showing a driver's location based on near real-time data. That way it's more accessible to you and more affordable. One day you may want to look at doing real-time data transfer, but it could realistically get very expensive if you have live map tracking happening. So starting off with near real-time, I think will be just fine. All right, so now moving on to the driver app, which again, customer app will come first, driver app will come second, and then we may have to work between the two to kind of connect everything together at some point. But we will discuss, and I will partially demonstrate driver account creation and driver verification. Now, whether you intend to actually deploy driver verification or not, that's up to you. I would suggest that you do. That includes finding out if they have any criminal history, if they have anything on their driving record that might be a problem. But again, that's up to you whether you want to do that or not. And, I'm just giving my recommendation, but there are methods out there to streamline that process for you so that you don't have to develop that capability from scratch. Google Vision API is one of them. It's a very powerful tool, but it can be a very complicated tool. So we'll go over it a little bit, but we won't dive into it too much as to exactly how to incorporate it into your app, because you may want to use something different for that. I'll also demonstrate driver clock in and clock out workflow for self-assigned shifts. It's typically how those things are done. The drivers aren't assigned a shift or have to work certain hours. They kind of get to choose themselves. However, we're going to make it so that when they go on a shift, that it puts them into a status of being available. That way they can receive orders. Otherwise, if they're not on shift, they won't receive any orders or updates like that. Just to kind of streamline that process a little bit. We will demonstrate driver workflow for incoming orders, accepting orders, and associated delivery profit and potential tip related to the order. We'll also demonstrate order details. That would be the location, the items in the order, etc. And opening the user's map on their personal device. So whatever their standard mapping system is on their device will pass the location of the restaurant and the location of the customer into their map, so they can use that. Of course, we already talked about, we'll demonstrate the driver ETA to restaurant and to the customer using some functions. We will demonstrate workflow for indicating to the customer that the order has been picked up, that the driver is en route to their location, and when the driver is at the customer's location, has arrived. And then anything additional to that, like left your food on the porch or left it wherever, just kind of a little indicator that they left it somewhere. And then I will also demonstrate a very simple driver dashboard that'll present to the driver their earnings, as well as the customer reviews that were left for them. And then lastly, some other stuff that we'll just kind of discuss. I might look into implementing it a little bit, but incorporating push notifications, and this would be related to notifications coming into a driver, related to potential orders, and then of course notifications going to the customer for related to their order that they've made. We'll also discuss utilizing cloud functions on the back end for in-app notifications like toast messages, as well as other type of notifications, text message, email, things like that. However, it's going to be more of a discussion rather than a demonstration. Okay, we'll discuss that. Let's see. We will discuss payment distribution concepts. So that's the workflow that handles how money is distributed. That is what goes to the restaurant, what goes to the driver, what goes to the app admin or app overview. How that can work, different ways that you can set it up really depends on what payment gateway you do and what they offer. But I'll just kind of go over a couple of the key pointers of how you can do that, and you can decide which one works best for your concept. And then also, lastly, we will discuss administration dashboard concepts. I'm not going to build an administration dashboard for this app, simply because I've gotten feedback between when this app was first conceptualized to now, And I've heard all sorts of different things of what an admin dashboard should look like. And I agree. I'm not arguing with anybody. I totally agree. But where I've landed at is that an admin dashboard, aside from just keeping track of revenue sales, which you can do that without an app admin dashboard, you can do that inside of whatever payment gateway you use. The admin dashboard would really be a tutorial in and of itself, very, very complex. And the ideas of what people have wanted for the admin dashboard have ranged from, just keeping track of all the orders, customer satisfaction, driver performance logs, training, if there is some offered, all the way to setting up an admin dashboard that essentially serves as a central dispatch system for drivers. If you're not going to use the method where the order goes directly to a driver, lack of a better word, a driver news feed where they can accept an order if they want to, or decline it, but rather where that order would go to like an administration, I don't know, like a panel of people to have those orders, like a switchboard really, where those orders would come in, and those administrators would assign the order to a user. And I'm, if that's the app concept that you're going with, that sounds great. I'm not arguing with it by any means. But the concept to reality, it sounds great. Maybe in your mind, maybe even sound great on paper. But once you start getting into the weeds of actually developing a mobile app and a web app for that purpose, it is not something that you can just really do quickly, because there's a lot of variables that have to go into place for that to work. And if you're planning on having more than one person dispatching, then those things have to work in communication and tandem with each other, so that drivers aren't getting misassigned or getting double assigned, or a driver got assigned to this, got assigned to route A, and then that same driver just got assigned to route B on the other side of town. And the driver has no idea what's going on, and the administration people don't know what's going on. And so there's a lot of elements that would really have to be dialed into to make that work. And that's not something that I'm going to take on as a tutorial. And if you want to talk about it privately, we can do that. But now, as far as like an admin dashboard goes, just an overview of an admin dashboard that could be kind of retrofitted for what you're wanting, whether it's a delivery app or a social media app or a business app or whatever. I am planning on doing a tutorial that's covering an admin dashboard because that's been requested quite a few times. But it's going to be a broad overview, and then it'll be up to you to dial it into what you need. But anyway, so those are the things that we're going to cover in SugarRush, and it's going to be broken up into several chapters and multiple parts, and we'll get through it as quickly as we can. Just bear with me. I do have other things to do, ranging from helping people to tutorials to jobs to all sorts of things. So get into it as I'm able. So I think that's about it. Oh, also, some of you probably have heard that I am going to release a social media clone that will be made available for sale. More updates to that soon. I'm trying to get that sucker done. Again, there's so many different things going on right now that I'm having to jump back and forth. So hopefully soon. But also my intent with this food delivery app is that I will provide it as a purchasable clone as well. So, and all of my clones will be sold at a base, very fair price to make it accessible to as many people as possible. It's not going to be crazy high. but there will be add-ons available to each clone. So if the essential base clone does not have something included that you would like, and you either don't want to do it yourself or you don't know how to do it, you can buy an add-on, and then you can kind of design your clone package the way you want. You know, you may need features 1, 2, and 3, but not 4, 5, and 6. So you can spend what you want and get what you want that way. I think that's the best way to do that. If you're not planning on hiring me to build you a fully custom app. Now, that said, if you buy a clone, it is a generic clone. It's not designed for you. It's not designed for anybody else. It is designed to provide you a baseline of essential features, depending on what you want, to be able to get out there and go quickly with it, and then you can implement your designs, your colors, pictures, whatever, to make it more unique to your concept and what you're trying to do. All right, that's it for the overview for SugarRush. We'll start getting these tutorials pumped out for this one. So, as always, if you like what I do, support me. You can buy me a coffee. My profile for that is in the description of this video. And I converted the Discord server to a community server. So now the link to that should not expire anymore. Thank goodness. That was frustrating. So definitely join us on Discord. Free to do it. Don't charge anything for that. Come on over there, ask questions, get answers, stuff. Send me a direct message if you want to. I'll do my best to respond to you as quickly as possible. Alrighty. Y'all take care. And be looking for the first chapter of this tutorial to drop very soon.